decision-making and performance management. I am Karen Osborne, and of the Osborne Group, and that's me. Glad you are here. You can ask your questions. If you look at the sidebar, you'll see a place for questions. You can type in those questions at any time. There are scheduled Q&As, but you can add your questions at any time during the conversation, and I'll make sure that we get those questions answered. Okay, so let us move on. Data and information helps you make good decisions about who is working well, but also what is working well, and why it might be working well or not, and what to do next. So looking at it from both perspectives is a good thing, and that's what we're going to talk about. So first we start with history. The question is, what question comes to your mind when you see this realized table of gifts, right? What question do you see? Is it, are you worried about what's going on with the $1 million donors? Are you worried about the yes rate? Are you worried about the number of solicitations? What is it that you see here that causes you concern? Because this is how we need to use data, right? We need to look for opportunity. We need to look for problems. So we need to see kind of what's going on. So it turned out that most of you, 43% said, what's going on with those $1 million donors? And 14 of you said, why is our yes rate low? And 43% said, why is our number of solicitations low? And I would say that those of you who were concerned about the $1 million donors, absolutely. That would be one of my first questions. What's going on there? It could be a timing issue. It could be, you know, that all of them are in a different stages of cultivation, of engagement, and everything is just fine, and we're tracking on the $1 million donors, but you'd still ask the question, right? You would look at that and go, I'm worried about this. I need to ask a question. And absolutely, you would be concerned about the number of solicitations. Again, how are we doing against plan? It might be a problem. It might not be a problem. One would have to go and see what the plan was. What had we intended? The one thing that it doesn't show us, however, that is truly important is the yes rate. It doesn't actually address yes rates. So let's talk about yes rates for a minute, because they are hugely important. So I'm going to get rid of this poll. We're going to hide the poll and look at this. So yes rates are one of those key metrics. I want to know what's the percentage of yeses to the number of solicitations. So on the major gift side, that yes rate should be really high, because we shouldn't be asking people randomly. You know, when you're looking at annual giving, you know, you're going to get, if you're face-to-face, on average, you should be getting 70% a yes to at least 50% of the request. If you're doing it by phone, or you're doing it by, mail, then obviously that rate is going to be even lower. But if you are major gifts, then that yes rate should be truly high. It should be, 85, 90% yes rate, because you are asking people when they are ready to be asked. That's your job, to get people ready for a joyful, inspired, generous yes. The percentage of solicitations to the amount pledged is also important. Did you ask for $1 million and you got 50,000? This is not a good yes rate. So you want to know that. You also want to know how we're stacking up against giving capacity. So if I'm a board member, then I should be tracking kind of close to giving capacity. I should be doing pretty well, 50%, 75%, something like that. If I'm further away from you, I'm not as engaged, then obviously that's going to be a number that's going to be a smaller percentage. So again, you want to know what that is, look at how we're doing, and then you want to look at that by staff member and by volunteer if you use a lot of volunteers. So yes rates are one of those powerful performance indicators that help us figure out what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. And as we look at it as a staff measure or a volunteer measure, again, you can only judge it if you ask questions. You can only judge it by looking behind the numbers. You also want to look at how many kind of open pledges there are. I have people say to me, well, we asked for, $100,000 a year ago, and it's not closed. You really have gotten one of your rights wrong, and you're back to square one. You don't really have a pending solicitation if it's been a long time. We should be able to close a gift in, a month? If it's really complicated, maybe 2 months. But, gifts shouldn't be hanging out there for any length of time. Something is wrong. One of the rights is clearly wrong. All right, now, this is a changed realized table of gifts. You notice now that the last column says the number of solicitations closed. And that's important. If we measure just, how many people did we ask, and we don't measure the yes rates of how many we closed, so this has the number of solicitations closed. And this is your next polling question, right? Because we're still kind of looking at data, past history data. We're looking for answers. So this time, the question is, where are the best opportunities? Where do you see in this table of gifts opportunities for going forward? So I'm going to open that poll. All right, so do you see the best opportunities at the $1 million level, the $500,000, $250,000, $100,000, or $50,000 level? Where would you, obviously, you only can pick one answer, so there's clearly, more than one answer here, but where's the best? The place that you would look the most. All right, so 43% of you believe that there's a real opportunity at the $1 million level, and absolutely, major gifts, we've got to start from the top. We have to know where our capacity donors are, and look how few, we've got 5 people with the capacity to give $1 million or more, and we don't have any of those closed. So what's going on there? 500,000, you're right. We're doing okay there, aren't we? That we have 5 of that capacity and we closed 3. That's pretty sweet. And we only needed 1 gift to make our goal. I mean, we had one. We only needed 1 gift to make our goal, and we ended up with 3 closed. So of the 5 that we knew, so that's excellent, right? At the $250,000, there's good opportunity there. We need 10. We have 10 people with capacity, right? And we have 4 closed. Not bad. And then the $50,000, lots of opportunity at the $50,000 too, right? So this is a table of gifts that to me shows that we've got a lot going for us, a lot that we could do with the names. And you'd want to look back and see name by name, where's everybody, whose portfolio they are, how are we doing? So let's hide this poll. So one of the things we also have to do is pay attention to our Leadership Annual Fund metrics, because they feed the Annual Fund leadership, especially $1,000 and up, feeds your major gift pipeline. So even if you are only in charge, some of you are in charge of everything, I know, but if you are a major gift officer, you have a stake in how well that Leadership Annual Fund is going, because it's where you're going to get your next group of prospective donors. It's an important pool for you. You want to make sure that they are looking at the right metrics there. So let's just take a look there. You know, Joe Connolly of the Wall Street Journal was quoting some leader, I don't know who. I didn't catch the person's name, so I just give Joe the credit. But what Joe said is that retention is the new acquisition. And we know that that is true. We know that leadership, annual giving retention period, but especially leadership annual giving retention is so important, and we're losing so much money, right? There was that big study that was done in 2012 among new, upgraded, and previously left donors. Every $100 gained in 2011, it was offset by $100 in losses through giving attrition. Yikes! And among new and previously left donors, every 100 donors gained was offset by 107 donors lost. So our not-for-profits are churning through donors. And these are people who, you know, I'm not going to give you $100 if I'm poor, right? If I am poor and struggling, $100 is a lot of money. So when people give at $100, these are people that a major gift officer should be interested in, because chances are they can do a lot more, right? You're not going to give up it's the rare person. I'm not saying it never happens, but it's the rare person that's going to write a $100 check to a charity, and they're worried about the rent money. So these folks, the fact that we're churning through gifts at these levels, not good, right? And it's getting worse. Over the last 7 years, we went from 50% to 39% in overall donor retention. And it's one of the most important metrics for success. This just can't be. This breaks my heart. This makes me sad. When you look at retention based on the number of years given, you can see that if you could change the new donor equation, how much more money you would be raising. Because if we could up that, then your base is broader. And look, when you have 2 consecutive years of giving, look how retention jumps. And if you have 3 to 4 years, it jumps even higher. And 5 years, look, you're at 85% retention rate if you can keep people for 5 years or more. So if you could change your new donor numbers, you would be raising more money, and you would have a bigger pipeline for potential major gifts. This is huge, and if you were looking at that from the major gift lens of people giving at least $100, and what is that retention rate? New donors who give at $100 or more, that's a number that a major gift officer needs to pay attention to. And then, of course, you need to back up all of this with a name-by-name approach so that you are clear about who gave, why they gave. You know, it's not net. It's not, well, last year we had 72 people who gave $1,000 or more, and this year we have 73, so we're in good shape. No, let's do name by name. Did we lose 15 and gain 20? Right? That's not a good number. So the net is not what's important here. It is name by name. Are we churning donors? Are we losing donors? That makes sense? All right. So here's your next polling question. The question is, what is your donor retention rate for first-time donors? Are you at 50% or better, beating the national average? Are you at the national average or just a little bit higher, 40 to 49%? Are you below the national average of 30 to 39%, less than 30%, or you don't know, you don't track it? Knowing your retention rates and having a plan for strengthening them is so critical. 100% of you voted, 70% of you said that you don't know, 29% said that you're below the national average. So that's really, that's harsh, right? So this is a great place for us to open up the Q&A. So what are some of your questions? We got a question here. We track this. I just don't know. Happen to know. Oh, okay, great. So one of the participants says, "I know that we track it. It's just not something that I personally know the answer to." And the reason that as a major gift officer you want to know the answer to that, right, is so that you know if it's good, bad, or indifferent, and whether or not you need to be concerned as a major gift officer. You know, it's just a good thing for you to find out what the deal is. I got another question. What are some strategies for turning around retention rates? The place that you can do the most good is with new donors. And so having a new donor retention plan, and I just saw a study, maybe it came out last year. I used to think that you had a year to hold on to new donors. It turns out you really have less than 6 months. That when people looked at where people kind of dropped off, they did a big study and talking to people and listening, they made the decision in the first 6 months whether or not they're going to renew next year or not. And so one really good strategy is to have an intensive new donor plan, especially $100 and up. So pick up the phone and call people. If you're huge and big, you know, you may have to hire somebody. One hospital in Chicago, they just hired several people who that was their job, to develop relationships on the phone with new donors. If you're small, then you can fit this in. This is so important. How many gifts a day do you get? So pick up the phone, call people, ask a couple of strategic questions. Thank you so much. Welcome to the family. What inspired this gift? Who else should I thank? Please look out for our welcome package. Get a welcome package out within 3 weeks, right? Welcome to the name of the organization. We're so glad you're here. Here's some more information about us. Here's an invitation to something. Here's a little survey. Could you send in this question? Could you go to this link on our website? Right? And then maybe by month 3, 4, their first impact communication. Here's the impact that your gifts are already starting to have. Here's how we are using the money you invested. Here is the return on investment that's begun. Within 6 months, if you could turn that number around, that would just be awesome. So that's the most important place. The next most important place is reactivation, bringing people back. We missed you calls. Sometimes people just don't remember what our fiscal year is. You know, they don't know. Some of us, you know, end in June, others end in August, others end in December. I thought I gave you this year. I didn't realize I didn't give you this year. So reaching out to immediately past donors, maybe 2 years out. You don't want to do it any further than 2 years out. When you hit 3, 4, 5 years, you're really, you know, you have less and less return on investment. But 2 years out, 1 year out, you have a lot of really good return on investment. I think we have another question. What is the national average for first-time donors? So first-time donors, 40% return, 60% attrition, 40% return, according to Target Analytics. So this is about annual fund donors. And the reason that we are talking about retention rates for annual fund donors is because they are part of your pipeline, right? Major gift donors, you don't really think about retention in the same way, but I think you do want to know what your major gift donors' annual fund retention rates are, and you would certainly look at retention rates for major gift donors. You know, do they renew? Do they get them? But it's not an annual thing, right? You don't expect a major gift every year, a new major gift every year. from somebody, but you certainly should be paying attention to, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, about their engagement scores. That's going to be one of the big ways that we track major gift donors. Yeah. All right. So I think that's the last of the questions typed so far. Let us proceed. So one of the things as you look at, you've looked at your history, you've looked at the opportunities, you've looked at your real-life table of gifts, you looked at your yes rates, your retention rates. You're looking at, and even some more different things that we're going to talk about later. You looked at all your history, and now based on that history and based on the needs of the organization, you're going to set some goals. And the first goal you have to set really is donor identification goals, right? So if you were trying to raise $50 million over the next 5 years, and if those are too many zeros for you, just drop them. And if those are too few zeros for you, just add them. But, so it doesn't really matter. They're just zeros. We shouldn't get hung up by the zeros. The concept is absolutely the same. So if you were trying to raise $50 million, you would build a projected table of gifts, right? And how many gifts do I need at each level in order to achieve my goal? And we are, you're going to, at 100,000 and up, you want to have like 80% of your goal achieved, 85% of your goal achieved at those high-end levels. And then the Leadership Annual Fund takes another chunk, and then everybody else. And if this is only a major gift strategy, then clearly you'd need more gifts at the high end. So we look at this, right? And you know that there's 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1 ratios in terms of the number of possible donors need to be identified for the number of gifts received. So take a look at this table, because we're going to have a polling question coming up. So look it over, study it, and I'm going to open the polling, the next polling question. And the question is, how worrisome is this gift table? That's the question. How worrisome is this gift table? So is it very worrisome because we are missing the number of gifts at the top end that we need? Is it not at all worrisome because, look, we need 208 and we have 200, right? So that doesn't seem worrisome at all. Is it somewhat worrisome because, there's some problems here, but other things are really good? So what do you think? You are the consultant, or you're the new VP, and you're looking at this, and you're trying to decide what my areas of opportunity are and what my problems might be. This is the kind of thinking that we need to do on a regular basis, And I know it's so hard. You guys are so busy. It's hard to take time to really study things and analyze, but we desperately need that in order to make good decisions. So we're 57% have voted, and we need you guys to jump on in, the rest of you to jump on in. Is this very, not at all, or somewhat worrisome? What do you think? We're up to 71%. Just need a couple more people to vote, and we are good to go. What do you think? Hop on in there. Good, good. We're at 86%. We're almost there. I hope all of you use realized tables of gifts, name-by-name table of gifts. We need one more person to vote, and a projected table of gifts, and that you add to your projected table of gifts high, low, and likely. So as you look at, the 6 gifts that we need at the 1.25 million and the 40 people that we have rated at this level, how likely it is that we're going to close that gift at what amount. Okay, so we've got 100% voting. So high, low, likely is a really important strategies. Now I'm going to share the results with you. So 43% of you think that this is a very worrisome because we don't have enough donors at the top. And 14% said not at all because, you know, we need 208, and we have 200. That looks really good. And 43% said somewhat because there are areas of strength. So here's the way that I would look at this. Ideally, we really would have enough donors at the top end. You know, that would be really good. But when I look at the swelling at the 1.25, right, there's a 40 people who have a rating of 1 million to 49999. I could probably make up for the 5 million and the 2.5 million out of that pool, just close more of those folks at that level. I don't know if this is a worry yet because I would have to look at name by name, right? So if I had highly engaged people at that level, they had a very high E-score, engagement score, or I had real access and I had time to get them ready in terms of my strategy and the timing of the campaign or the timing of the Major Gift Initiative, then I wouldn't be worried. This would be better, but we're A-okay. But if those 40 are really way out there on the readiness score, they're not high, they don't have a high E-score, and we need the money sooner than later, then that top end would really worry me. The fact that you're looking for 208 and you have 200, that is a good thing. But it's not a good thing by itself if our distribution isn't good, right? So, for example, we need, at the $500,000 level, we need 33 possible donors, and we only have 10 who have been identified. So that's a problem. And then you look a little higher at the 750,000, we need 27, and we only have 15. Now, again, you could say, oh, but some of them could cascade down from the 1.25, but if we're also counting on those groups to make up for what's missing at the top, that would put a lot of pressure on that line. So to me, this is a somewhat worrisome chart, right? I would be worried for my clients, and we would need some real strategies to address this. So it's a very, very good tool. It's one that I hope you all use and are looking at it and adding to it. So this is the next piece that has to come up. So having monthly or quarterly donor identification goals is really a good thing. So we're at 200 and we need 208. So that's not going to be my goal to have to push on the number. But I have to push at the levels that are missing. So I need a strategy for that. Now, what if your numbers were way off? You needed a total of, 5,000 because you're going all the way down to, people at $1,000 and up to do your campaign, and you only have 1,200. So you pick the date by when you really need to have everybody identified based on your fundraising objectives and plan, and then you back that up. How many do I have to identify per quarter? How many do I have to identify per month? And research can't be responsible for rating all of, rating those donors. We need to identify people and do quick and dirty research and then go out and visit people and qualify them. Research, if you have the luxury, it's not really a luxury, it's really a necessity, but if you have a research department, you don't want them doing hours and hours of research on people trying to qualify them. So you need to have a good qualification plan as well. So donor identification numbers, monthly or quarterly. I like monthly to get your numbers to where they need to be. So again, your table of gifts helps you set those goals, right? You also want to set goals around yes rates and retention rates. New, reacquired, 2 to 4 years, 5 years plus. Identify the goal, make a plan, test it, fix it, pretty much, right? Very, very disciplined approach. This helps your major gift program really take off, do well. Now let's talk about eScores. So I'm just going to, that was our last poll. So let's talk about eScores now, because eScores are important and they're cool and they help you a lot. So you all have seen, any of you that have been with me in the past have seen the Tonside curve of engagement. So just a quick review. Don't want to bore those of you that have taken sessions with me before. But basically what the Tonside curve says is that the more involved you are, the more you give, right? And we're thinking about giving in the major gift sense of giving is being all in, right? So they're giving their human capital, they're bringing their experiences and their time and their energy, they're giving their intellectual capital, they're bringing their expertise and ideas, their tactical thinking, their strategic thinking, they're bringing their network capital, introducing you to people, and they're bringing their financial capital. Because when major donors are all in, the gifts are bigger, right? The more engaged they are, the more we're engaging their personal capital, human, intellectual, network, and financial. The more we're engaging the whole person, the more money that you receive. So major gift donors, we need them all in, highly engaged. And when we talk about engagement versus involvement, and you can see where the bump happens, right? On the Tonside curve, the big bump happens at engagement. And the difference between engagement and involvement is one of action, right? So if I'm passive, if I'm taking a tour, if I'm sitting and being entertained, if I'm listening to a lecture, that is not engagement. That's involvement, but it's not engagement, right? Engagement is two-way. I have to have action. There's an intellectual component. You need me thinking and doing and feeling. Think, feel, do. Make something engaging, and that sends people straight up the Tonside curve. So you want to make sure as a gift officer you have a suite of true engagement opportunities that you can call upon to turn into moves, right? So we want to, from a metrics point of view, track which of our engagement opportunities are actually having a direct impact on the size gifts that we're getting from our major gift prospective donors. Because you have limited resources, and if some of your engagement opportunities are not having the impact on giving that you want, lots of people came. For example, I was just at a fundraiser Sunday, and it was a wonderful event. It was this fabulous event. What we need to know, so, you know, everybody was so excited. The committee was beside themselves with joy. But we only know if it's successful, yes, by the net that we raised, but also by what happens to the people after this. Do they increase their giving? Do they increase their all-in investment? We had lots of heavy hitters in the room, high net worth individuals who were very generous. What happens to them next? I don't know if that event was successful yet. It's too soon for us to know. So now let's look at eScores. The first thing that eScores help us with is the major gift readiness pipeline, right? We should be tracking how far people are from a joyful, inspired, generous yes. Not how far are we from solicitation, but how far away are we from them saying yes to us. And that's a major gift officer's judgment. And one of the metrics that I would actually measure you on if you worked for me is how well you do in terms of predicting when people are going to say yes. You know, are you accurate? Are you good? And the yes would be a priority at a close, close percentage of the amount you requested. Okay? And this is a great code for helping you track donor readiness and engagement, whether or not your moves are working, your donor initiatives are working, right? And so this is how you would use it in the gift table, right? So you'd have the name, you'd have their capacity rating, their inclination rating. Inclination is, are they philanthropic? Is there a close affinity? Is there a good path, easy path to get to them? And then their readiness code, as I just showed it to you. Excuse me, I'm just going to take a quick sip of water. And so you can pull it, and the capacity rating should actually be coded as well, right? So, 5 million plus should be 10, and 3 million is 9, and the next one is 8, 7, 6 going down. The reason you wouldn't make the 5 million 1 is because what if you then find somebody who has a capacity of 10 million or 7 million? So you want to be able to, so starting with 10, you can always add on, right, reversing the order. And if you have everything coded, obviously you can sort and get reports that help you with that. So here's what an E-score is. And you do this through a little bit of data, data mining to look and see. So here's this organization's engagement opportunities. They hold vision meetings, right, where they have small gatherings and they bring people in to talk about the issues. It's very interactive. I'm asking my audience questions about the problems we're solving, about the values we have, about the things we're trying to do. Vision meetings are very, very interactive, very mission focused. They hosted an event, that could be a fundraising event. It could be, something that's not as mission related. They hosted the golf event, whatever it is. Another engagement opportunity that this not-for-profit does is they ask folks to raise money for them on their own, to tap into their friends, to raise it online, to go on a major gift call. We introduce one or more potential donors, served on a high-level committee. I asked you to come serve on a task force that we have. We're doing it over the next 6 weeks to figure out, do we have, what is our stewardship program going to look like? What's our new donor program going to look like? What is it that we should be doing to onboard and get more people involved? How should we test donor satisfaction? Whatever. Served on a high-level committee. Participated in a day of service. When you look at the turn-side curve, some of the data that backs that is that this was Bank of America and Indiana University when they did that big study on what are some of the factors that seem to impact the size of giving. And so engagement, on average, these high net worth individuals, when they were engaged, they gave $124,000 on average, not engaged 35. When their expertise was used, day of service, jumped to $158,000. When their families were involved, day of service, jumped to $244,000. So this not-for-profit, part of their engagement, suite of engagement opportunities are days of service. Took a tour and brought a friend, they're a board member, provides high-level advice, provides high-level expertise, free legal advice, free construction advice and you're in a building campaign. So then they looked at who in the past increased their giving, made a major gift, and which of these activities did they belong to, participate in. And based on how many people attended a vision meeting and ended up making a significant major gift soon after, it was a lot. So they gave that engagement 5 points. They gave the board, being a board member, 8 points because that's where the best giving for this not-for-profit is coming from. Our board is, like, for instance, for real, and the board that I'm on, the board of trustees is 90% of the unrestricted giving. The organization raises most of its money from foundations, and our individual giving program isn't our robust strength, but 90% of the unrestricted dollars comes from the board. That would have a very high, whereas other people that might not have, other organizations that might not be so high. So you're looking to see patterns from the past, and then you're giving your suite of engagement opportunities a points based on what you have observed from the past. And that allows you to figure out what to do with people going forward because you know which of your activities has the biggest impact, which of your activities seems to result in the most giving. And so you're looking for, and then you kind of set a number of E-scores. You're looking to see what the E-score is for these various people, these various segments, and what the giving average was, and it really helps you hone in on your suite of engagement opportunities. It also helps you hone in on where a particular donor is in the cycle and what you need to do with them next. What's the fodder you have for turning into moves that would be most helpful. So E-scores are cool and helpful, and it really helps you kind of not splash around as much and narrow the choices of what's the best thing to do with this person. Recognizing that everybody is an individual, and your strategy has to address my personal motivation and my personal preferences and where the relationship is with me. It shouldn't be formulaic, but E-scores can be helpful to you as you try to figure out what to do next and where to put your resources. That makes sense? So let's look at questions. Do we have any new questions? Let me just look and see. Once E-scores are set, how often should we revisit the point values to see if some activities have changed in their effectiveness? Great question. So, I believe that we should be planning once a year and doing course correction every 6 months. And so to me, just in general, right? Every year you should have a strategic, a plan. You should have a 3-year strategic plan for your major gift program. But then you should have a 1-year tactical plan that you get done before the fiscal year starts, which means you have to do your analysis at the end of close to the end of the current fiscal year, and then build your plan, going forward, and then 6 months later you do a course correction. So to me, that would be the time, both times, to check my E-scores, look to see what's working, what isn't working, what do we need to adjust. Course correction, if you are a June to July, January is a great month for course correction. Even, and then of course it's a great month also, calendar year, because ideally you'd make your plans in November, but because so many of our gifts come in November and December, you would still need January to kind of, tweak and fix and adjust. January is a powerful month for planning and looking at numbers and crunching metrics. So twice a year I find it to be the best. When you were talking about retention, does giving level matter? Okay, so the question on the table had been, does giving levels matter? And the answer is absolutely, giving levels matter. And I hope audio is all back for everybody. Really, really sorry. And let us move forward. I'm just not sure why that's such a big problem. But we're almost done here. No, we're not. We're 2 to 3:30. We're good. We're great. We're in great shape. Any other questions that anybody has? No? Everybody's good? Just checking to see if there's any other questions that we haven't answered. Okay. So now let's move to the next. So one of the things that as we think about what numbers we should be crunching and parsing and how we should look at things, there are a couple of others that we haven't talked about. And upgrades are a major gift officer's good friend. So if I am an annual leadership annual fund donor and I moved from 5,000 to 10,000, or I moved from 2,500 to 5,000, or 10,000 to 25,000, and I hope that you have in your leadership annual giving powerful reasons for people to move up, because again, this is a really good major gift tool to find out what the right purposes might be. You know, so many major donors test us, start with us at the annual giving level. So, and you want every major donor to continue to be an annual giving donor. So those impact statements, why, you know, what is accomplished, not bought, what is accomplished at $1,000, $2,500, $5,000, $10,000, $25,000, what can my unrestricted budget relieving dollars accomplish at those levels? What kinds of things help you as a major gift officer hone in on my motivations, what really excites me, my passions. The fact that I step up, because, and you gave me good reasons to, then becomes an important metric for you, because they are voting with their feet. They are telling you how ready they are. They are increasing their annual fund gifts at the leadership level. Oh my goodness, these are your people. These are the folks that you are looking for. So you want to make sure that, again, if this is not your responsibility, that you are paying attention to that metric. You're asking your colleagues whose responsibility it is, what are those metrics? How are we doing? Now, the place that upgrades doesn't count, and doesn't help you at all as a major gift officer, is if the annual fund is not giving people a reason to step up. Oh, you know, we want you to move from gold to silver. We want you to move from silver to platinum. We want you to move from the 1872 circle to the founder circle. And who cares? So then upgrades are not really a function of, you know, you get upgrades, but it's not going to be as helpful to you as a major gift officer. You should look at it, you should care about it, but what is the most important to you is when the case for upgrades is strong, and then you're really looking to see how can I, what can I glean from why this person stepped up, and now they could really be an important person in my portfolio. Lifetime value is another really good indicator for major gifts and planned giving, right? So looking at how much they've given, you know, the cum total of how much they've given over the course of their relationship. You want to look at that. And again, with that, you might look at their EAT scores, you know, the ones that have a higher lifetime value, even if their giving hasn't, you know, risen to the level that you think it should, but when you add up all their gifts, it's an impressive number. That's another, really good indicator that you might have a good major plan gift to close. So looking at lifetime value. Now this next one, a little, because this is huge. So one of the things that, as a major gift officer, you should always be looking at portfolio balance. And those of you who are leaders, managers of other major gift officers, portfolio balance, as you know, is a critically important tool. So let's just look at that for a minute. Right? So if you could lay out your pool against a grid, there are different grids, and Jerry didn't have one. I think it's in the material that they gave you at the conference or have given to you in past conferences. This is just one way of gridding people that I find helpful. So the bottom, if you look at the bottom, right, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that's the readiness code that we talked about earlier, right? So A is closed, and B is pending, and C is 0 to 3 months, and D is 3 to 6 months away from a joyful, inspired, generous yes to or a priority, right, going out. So that's very concrete and measurable and coded. And then going up, the axis going up, is capacity to give. So your best people have the highest capacity, they're the most ready, and then you're going to kind of layer on top of that their E-score. What things have they been involved in, and what point value did we give that to? And now I've got a really good pool of donors in that box. And then to the left, highest capacity, lower E-scores, less ready. These are still really important people for us, right, because they're high capacity. So I have to have a plan for them. And then lower capacity, high E-scores, and ready, right? And then lower, least. And how my portfolio is balanced against these. So back in the day, we used to say, not even that far back in the day, we were saying that a gift officer should be able to handle 150 prospective donors. But now a lot of the thinking is that that is a lot, and that 75 to 100 might be a more reasonable portfolio, distributed in a good way. So if I am a seasoned gift officer, and I've been doing this for a while, I should have mostly people at the top part of this grid. If I am a journeyman, I should have a nice mix of people. And you decide where the cutoff is, right? So maybe the cutoff on this grid, the least, the bottom of the vertical is $100,000. Maybe capacity. Maybe for someone else it's $10,000. You guys decide where the cutoffs are, right? And everybody that makes the grid has to have a affinity inclination code of at least medium, because if they're not philanthropic and you don't have a path to them, then why are they in your portfolio? Now, doesn't mean that they're ready to give to you. Doesn't mean they love you. It's fine that they're on the grid if they don't love you yet, because that's our job, is to get them to love us. But we can't make them philanthropic. We can't make a 60-year-old who's never given any money to anybody or only gives very little money to anybody to suddenly be a major donor for us. It could happen, but should you have a portfolio full of people like that? No. So it's people who make your grid should be people who have some philanthropic intent, even if you're not on their list, and you should have a path to them. You know, it shouldn't be that there's somebody that nobody knows, never met, but darn, they're rich and they ought to be giving us money. Right? That's not a really good perspective donor. So it's looking at this and deciding and plotting it out and then having a reasonable number. So in that first box, you know, maybe you could handle 30, 35. If you're less experienced, maybe 25, 20. How many in the high capacity but lower E scores? They're going to be a lot more work, harder. You're going to be thinking harder, working harder, right? So another 30, maybe 35, and then the rest of your 75 to 100 is split out, you know, on the bottom. And that way you have a plan, you have a strategy. For the first box, high capacity, highest E scores, most ready, you have a written strategy. Then for the highest capacity, lower E scores, it's hard to have a written strategy for them, but you have a point, you know, a couple of steps that you're trying to do, a couple of things that you're thinking through. Lower capacity, high E scores, most ready, go ask them for money. Just go ask them for money. And steward them. And then the other folks, you have some kind of a communications plan. So as you think about metrics, my performance metrics should be influenced by my portfolio. So I don't believe in everybody has to do X number of visits. Everyone has to do X number of proposals. Everyone has to do X number of moves. If everybody's portfolio is different, how could we set performance measures that are identical? It just doesn't make sense. So our portfolio balance should determine, greatly influence what my individual performance metrics are, right? So it's not that measuring visits and moves is a bad thing. It's a good thing. But this notion that, you know, you have to do 21 visits a month, and you have to do, you know, 60 moves a quarter. Like, but that's so meaningless. And you have to have 12 proposals out per quarter. No, look at my portfolio. Look at the readiness codes of my donors. Look at the E-scores of my donors. And then set metrics that are going to make those numbers change substantially. Right? Now, oh my goodness, this person has, you know, an E-score of 12, and our best donors have an E-score of 30. So I've got to get my donors, my 12, up to 30. Here's my plan. Here's my strategy. This is how I'm going to get there. Then hold them to it. Add up the number of visits, that is. Add up the number of moves, that is. Set performance metrics based on written strategies and tied to portfolio balance. Now, let me just pause there. Does anyone have any, this is such a big, important piece, so I just want to make sure, does anyone have any questions around, oh, I see a question. How does this affect the way people are assigned? So how does what affect people, you know, portfolio balance? Or the grid? I'll try to answer both. Just I don't know exactly what you meant by the question. So annually and course correction time, we look at people's portfolios because sometimes they get out of whack. Maybe you're doing a lot of discovery visits. I mean, a lot. And that means that your portfolio balances are constantly changing because you found new donors or you dropped other donors. So looking at that and gridding your pool and looking to make sure that you're assigning the people with the most experience and the best performance measures with the best pool. Now, you don't want to give that new hire like the worst possible portfolio, because how demoralizing is that? And you don't want to, every time person discovers somebody new, take that person away, that potential donor away, and give them to your high performer, right? That's also demoralizing. But you do want to keep an eye at, am I giving my best people a really good portfolio, and am I giving my emerging people, my people that are really coming on, my new stars, my new potential stars, am I giving them a nice balanced pool, maybe not the best people, but good people? And then what are we doing with the rest? Are we just coming up with a good communication strategy, you know, a good annual fund strategy for them? So this should very much gritting, I think that's a word, the portfolio and keeping them balanced and keeping an eye on them at least on an annual basis. I like, you know, doing it twice a year, but if that's too daunting, you know, at least once a year, right? The next question is, what do you see as the difference between expert, journeyman, and beginner? So, you know, somebody who is very seasoned in their major gift work, they know your organization exceedingly well, they know their donor pool exceedingly well, and they meet goals. You know, they are closing gifts. They are, their prediction rates are very high. They're high-low likely. Projection rates are coming in on time. They change the E-scores of their prospective donors. They are closing gifts. You know, that to me, it's not a number of years. It's about output. It's about accomplishment. Now, because I know people who've been at this for a very long time and are not very good. So I wouldn't want you to look at it from a years of experience. I would want you to look at it from performance. And then a journeyman is a good person. You know, they're solid, but they still have a lot to learn. You know, strategy is very experiential. Our work is so experiential. It's a craft more than, you know, a body of knowledge. It's not hard to learn what we do, but it's hard to do what we do and do it well. So, you know, somebody kind of, you know, is solid, they do a decent job, but they're not your highest performer, and you want them to get better, or maybe they're a comer. You know, they were new, and now they're learning so fast, and they're getting traction. Those are kind of your middle folks, and then your beginner folks. You know what a beginner is. So you just, and again, you're gonna. That's why I want you to adjust twice a year, because people change, their performance changes. But this is important. So we're in the relationship building business, so we don't want to change portfolios without being donor-centric, right? So is there a long-term relationship here that's positive? Do I need to have this person who's not advancing this relationship in a good way to partner with somebody who has better experience? Have they met everybody in their portfolio? Do they have a real relationship with them, or they just spoke to them once? You know, so you've got to be donor-centric in building portfolios, and then, you know, performance-based. It's both. And trying to do that once a year or twice a year is good, is a good thing. New potential donors being assigned to different gift officers. Wait, what is this question? New prospective donors being assigned to different gift officers. I'm not sure what that question is. But I answer, is it just a number of years of experience? And the answer is no, right? All right, let us move on. You know, having a good news management report is really good to help you keep track of your, you know, some of your metrics that are critical. And this is important. I just want to pause here and just highlight this and make sure that we're all on the same page around this. So we already talked about capacity ratings, readiness ratings, right? And we talked about projections, high, low, likely, right? The high, what's the highest amount you think this person is going to say yes to? What do you think is the most likely, and what do you think is the worst case scenario? And you're not guessing. You're not using a formula. Now, some of the really big shops, like Oregon Health and Science University, I mean, they have one donor that's a $100 million donor, right? Just one donor gave $100 million. So they can't do their projections so much name by name. They have looked at their history, and they've come up with a formula based on data mining. And if you are big and complex, formulas can work because you've got such a big pool. But for most of us, it's a name-by-name deal. And it is based on personal knowledge and personal visits with that donor. And I am giving you my best judgment about the high, low, and likely. And so it's not like likely is 50% of the high. My likely might be my high. My likely might be my worst case scenario. My worst case scenario might be 0. It is all about judgment. And so you're looking at that. And then what is the move? What is the strategic initiative? And cultivation is not a move. I know you all know that, right? Cultivation is not a move. Cultivation is a meaningless word. So what is it that we are actually doing? How are we increasing motivation, overcoming a possible obstacle? What concrete, specific thing are we doing? Sending somebody an invitation is not a move. Sending somebody a thank you note is not a move. Sending somebody, inviting them to come to something that they didn't come to is not a move, right? So a move has to have clear objectives. And so we put down the move, who's going to do it, by when, and the more you can code those things, the easier it is for you as a manager to sort by the code and look and see where there's trouble, possibilities, hope, right? So having a good news management report is great, and I've not met the data, the donor management software that can't produce this report. They all can, right? Let's just check in and see if there's any other questions. That was just a follow-up to my other question. Okay. All right, so we're good. All right, so a couple of more things, unless somebody wants to write a question now. Just checking. All right. So, So other measures that we want to talk about before we wrap up our program. So board assessment and performance. This is an important tool for you. And I like looking at it in a variety of ways. So certainly you want to know the E-score of your board members. And, did they host a vision meeting? Did they attend one? How many committees do they serve on and are really participatory? Are they chairing the committee? How have they helped you between meetings? What is it that they're engaged in and involved in? What was the expectation that you had for them? How are they meeting those expectations? Are they increasing their annual fund gifts on a regular basis? When was their last major gift? That you are really scrutinizing your board assessment and that you have it against the criteria that you are looking for in prospective, in current and prospective board members. So things like, that they are true ambassadors, they really know your cause, they know you well, they can articulate the why. I hope all of you have heard Simon Sinek's, S-I-N-E-K, TED Talk, on Why Start With Why, and if you haven't, you should listen to it. It's only 18 minutes. Very powerful. It's for a for-profit talk, but you will see how well it matches who we are and what we do. So you want to make sure that each of your board members can talk about your why instead of just what you do and how you do it, right? So tracking that and then looking at how well they are helping you engage others, meet others, solicit others, steward others. You know, who are my stars? Who are not? How do I get more of them to be stars? Donor satisfaction is another powerful, powerful metric. You know, just think about your ability to say 99% of our donors report that they are highly satisfied with their investments in us and would recommend others to do the same, that they feel that we are, you know, customer service, you know, that's the other part of the Jill Connolly quote, retention is the new acquisition and customer service is the new marketing. And when people are wowed by how we treat them, how we report to them on the impact, you know, they believe that their investments are paying off, their investments of being all in, right? So you are stewarding my intellectual investment, my network investment, my human capital investment, and my financial investment. You're not just stewarding my money. You're stewarding my all-inness. Donor satisfaction is just a huge thing. And doing a donor satisfaction survey once a year, once every 2 years, and for major gifts, this is so helpful because if your organization is doing a broad-based statistical sample of donor satisfaction, and you could take that questionnaire and do it one-on-one with your major gift prospective donors, what great engagement. You know, we're in the middle of this study, and I wanted to sit with you and get your take on things. Whew, you could get a whole, you know, 3 to 6 months of activity and moves. You know, you could turn that into 3 moves, you know, 3 engagement opportunities, 1, them helping you think through the study, 2, them participating in the study, 3, you going back and reporting to them on the results and getting their advice, getting their take on things as you, you know, message in other ways and accomplish other things during that visit tied to their gift. So donor satisfaction is a wonderful, important statistic metric that has a direct impact on major gifts, and it can be a terrific engagement tool. And then stewardship delivered. So let's just talk about this for a minute with major donors. You know, when you're talking about annual fund donors and people at the bottom, you can just have a program, right? They get this thank you letter, they get this invitation, they get this report, they get this solicitation, and that's our program. And for our monthly donors, which, by the way, is a great retention strategy, monthly donors, and when you look at the data, monthly donors have a much higher retention rate than annual donors, but that's a whole other topic. But you know, this is what we do for our monthly donors. But when you talk about stewardship for major gifts, it's very personal, isn't it? And it has to be creative, and it has to be tied to what I care about. And so you as a gift officer, if you're responsible for that, then that's not really a metric. You know, you just want to pay attention and make sure my portfolio, everyone that's supposed to get it is getting it, and I'm doing it, and it's all happening. If somebody else is responsible for that, you have a huge stake in what your major donors are receiving and how they're receiving it. And you can, you know, so if you know that something is going out or an invitation is happening, you can pick up the phone and alert your donor that it's coming. You can follow up with them afterwards and ask them what they thought and how did they feel about it. Stewardship delivered is an important metric. How many of my major donors have received meaningful, creative, personalized stewardship, and did it please them? Did it affect them? And I know that because I spoke to them and because I track that and I report on that. So that's a really big deal. We know that stewardship raises more money than almost anything, right? And so you as a major gift officer, you care about the stewardship that annual giving people are getting, leadership annual giving people are getting. You care about that stewardship because these are your people. These are the ones, some percentage of them are going to end up in your portfolios if we do our work right. And, based on capacity, right? I could be a $500,000 capacity donor, but I'm a $5,000 annual fund donor, and that's where I am. So the stewardship I get for that $5,000 has a direct impact on your success. And then you care about it at the level of your donors and who's closed, and making sure that that happens in a timely fashion, that it's hand-delivered, that it's done well. So we are at the end of our time together. I, again, apologize for the 2 dropped calls. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure what happened there. Glad to be with you, glad that we've had this time, and I hope I will see you guys on the circuit as we go along. But meanwhile, do visit us. There's lots of free good stuff on our website and our podcasts and our spreecasts that we do most Fridays, and I hope I will see you either online or in person sometime soon. You guys have a great, great week, and thank you for joining us. And I'm now going to stop the recording. Bye, everybody.